Alright, what's up? Okay, we're gonna continue on with some relaxing drawing. We're gonna keep on doing faces, everybody. That's all we're gonna do for a long time. and then eventually we'll get to a place where we can just start drawing other random stuff. But we've been doing a ton of Loomis method stuff, and I think now we are going to transition just a little bit into some more practical, like straight up honest drawing, starting with whatever and getting into it immediately. So, to do that, I am going to start with this little shape, and then we can ink it, and I can talk through some dimension stuff, and then basically all we have to do from there is draw a couple of characters, and then that's going to be the stream. So as we're going, I can talk through some of this, but it'll be a lot easier to see once I get that ink in there. So what we're doing here is we're setting up dimensions, we're setting up proportions. And what this is going to help us do is it's going to give us footholds to then get all of our details and interesting factors in, right? So, what's up everybody? Basically, we have a couple of these lines, right? A couple of these setup Johns. And what these are going to do, I'm even going to bring this one up just a little bit. What these lines do, map out the top and the bottom of our head, right? And from here, when you're sketching things out, you have this rough head shape, right? And of course this is all sort of sketching out, so it's not going to be perfect, but that's fine, because this is just like a diagram for us to use, and no one needs to know about it. So we have this sort of intro shape for a head. Like you can see the top of the head, the whole cranium, and then into the chin. And with this top and bottom line that we've drawn, we have the perfect in to get that halfway point. So you can just measure or use your eye to figure out that in between the top and the bottom, this is about the halfway point, right? And that just works. And what the halfway point does for us is it sets up sort of this perfect intro line for about where the bottom of the eyes are going to be. A lot of times with all of these drawings, with all of the setups that you can see on TikTok, they'll start with a big circle, and then they'll draw that halfway line in between that circle, a halfway line down, and then they'll sort of start to add in the chin, and then they can again figure out that real center line depending on the perspective. But whenever you're doing it this way, this middle line actually ends up being the eyebrows, and then the lines down here usually end up being the eyes, right? So with this method, with this sort of smoother setup, we know that this is about the bottom of the eye. This line, maybe a half step up, is going to be about the eyebrow bone. And then from here, if we cut this down as well, we'll call that 1/4. That gives us a rough idea of where our nose is going to lie, like the bottom of our nose, right? And then again, we can cut this in half as well, and we can call that 1/8, right? And that's going to be our intro line to our mouth. And then just a half step down will be the bottom of the lip. Right? Are we all following this? So, from here, like these random drawings you'll see on TikTok, we can take the middle line of where we think the middle of this head is going to be. Right? So, usually, if you're drawing head on, completely directly on, that line is going to be right in the middle of this, in between these two lines. But since this head is turned this way, just a little bit to the left, because we can see the sort of back of the head, that line is going to shift ever so slightly to the left and be a little bit curved, just because of perspective, right? So now we have this line. And what this does is it separates where our eyes are going to be. So the first eye, or the left eye, is going to basically be inside of this area, and then the second eye is going to be slightly away from, because you have to leave space for that nose to have volume. So that's about where that other eye is going to be. And then you can sort of start mapping things out, just super simply, shading everything, just getting some rough shapes in here. All of a sudden, we have, you know, that right nostril, the point of that nose on the left, the bottom of the nose that we marked out, and then you can just drift down a little bit, and then you have that top lip and that bottom lip that we set up. And then that line that we did the half step above, what's up, Nate boy? That line that we had set up right above that middle line, right at that halfway point, that's going to be about where our eyebrows are going to lie. And eyebrows basically sit just above the eye. Something that I've struggled with pretty consistently is I would always draw eyebrows a lot higher above the eye than they should have been, which always made my characters look crazy surprised and sort of not proportional, right? So getting into the mindset of, well, these eyebrows have to be just above these eyes, right? I'll darken up some of these lines so we can see them a little bit better. But there really isn't a ton of space, especially if someone's looking directly at you. There's not a ton of space between the top of the eye and the bottom of the eyebrow. And what you can see, whenever you're drawing humans, or whenever you're drawing characters or people or whatever you're drawing, it's always important, especially when you're learning, to check in the mirror, or like take a picture of yourself and use it, oh, what's up, Galaxy, and use it as reference, because the more you do that, the more you set yourself up and like really look and study your face, the more you get used to all of the proportions that come with, you know, drawing and figuring out all of these face distances from each other. And it's strangely important, because when you're actually going and actually drawing all of these things, one little mess up just sort of derails your entire drawing, which is really, really annoying. That was something I would consistently do, is just like slowly mess up one thing, and then as I'm messing that up, I would look at my drawing and I would absolutely hate it, right? Because if I moved these eyes super low down or really high up, all of a sudden my whole drawing looks like it's not a human, and then I get frustrated. You're crocheting right now, DeGalaxy? Sick. Dude, Nerd Art Yap is the best. So, with that in mind, having that sort of frame of reference of the mirror or a picture of yourself or like a reference image, you slowly get more and more comfortable with just all of the little nuances that come with a drawing. And here I'm just kind of laying in a little bit of hair onto this model. And after a little bit of this, after a little bit of setup, we can move into just some real drawing of random people and just sort of repetition. Because that's another thing. You basically always want, once you learn something, you just want to repeat it as much as possible. Oh, thank you so much for all the likes. So with all of that shading done, I hope you can see most of that. I can even darken up some of these lines. You sort of get this rough idea of what this face is going to look like. And you can darken up some of these lines, add in some pupils or some irises, and just using all of that structure that we just laid out, we're all of a sudden getting into all of the details that we wished we had at the start of the drawing, which is awesome. It's so sick and easy to do every sort of drawing like this, like really focusing on the setup first, and then from that setup we just slowly meander our way through into like a pretty solid drawing. So I'm just going to darken up some of this nostril. We're going to add a little edge for that left side of the nose. We can add a little indication that that nose bridge goes all the way up along that middle line. And then basically the rest of the drawing is just detail, shading, and value. So let's say this guy doesn't have much of a top lip, so we're just going to add in a little bit of shading and a little bit of value. And then we can basically just shade in right underneath that bottom lip, give him some definition around the chin, give him a cheekbone on this side, cut in, make sure it's a little bit symmetrical on this side, and then basically all the rest of this drawing is just detail. So we'll give him sort of a swoop back hairstyle, right? Kind of like maybe like a 70s, maybe a 60s vibe. This guy kind of looks like a businessman. He looks a little bit upset, which is totally fine. I'm sure he had a hard day's work. And basically, that's the setup. That's what I'm trying to learn today. And then maybe you see like a little bit of this ear poking out if he's got a big one, right? I'm the only one here besides Twitch. That's creepy, low-key. It is kind of creepy. I'm surprised that Magnus hasn't shown up in a while, and Crow is always very, very late. Latrell, how do you draw hands? Oh, sweet. I like cats. Hi. Hi. Happy to have you guys here. We can do some hands. We can do a little hand break. Let's start this timer. Bingo. Crow died. No. I guess their lifespan is only like what? A couple months. Yeah, let's do some hands. Sure. So, let's first things first actually. Let's add in just a little bit of pen detail to this guy so then he looks a little bit more finished, a little bit more proper. And then we'll switch over to hands. Oh yeah. And also whenever you're inking, whenever you're doing these little details on a face, especially for, let's say, cartooning or illustration, you really just want to focus on the outside edges, all of the things that are the most important. You don't really ever need to worry about the sort of little tiny things when putting your pen down, because if you focus on all of the tiny little pieces constantly, you're going to get to a point where the drawing gets muddled. It feels like it's strange or like uncanny almost, because there's so much pen detail, there's so much stuff that your drawing gets stuck in this strange middle ground of realistic and cartoony, right? And we don't want that. We want to have a solid style throughout. And that's going to give your drawing cohesion, that's going to give your drawing the look that you want in a drawing, which is basically that you planned everything to look a certain way. Sometimes, especially when I'm drawing or when I used to draw and have a lot of these problems, I would catch myself in this strange like middle ground where my drawings looked cartoony but they had way too much detail, so all of a sudden it looked as if my drawing was just bad. Like, it just looked strange constantly. But with really focusing on these details and this setup, and really focusing on just drawing what you absolutely need to, you get to this point of, like, everyone that looks at your drawing knows what you're drawing. You don't ink? Oh, you never ink? Hey, all I'm saying is if you start to ink, have you seen that guy on TikTok that does ambidextrous pen drawings? I have. He's awesome. How do you draw a body? We can do that. We're gonna do a quick hand drawing. I only draw anime characters because they're easy. Yeah, exactly. Like there's such a difference between realism and anime. Frankenstein? Too busy yapping to check comments. It is. I am. Sorry. But inking is just as important as drawing with pencil, because whenever you're inking, you get to this point where you see all of your mess ups way sooner than you do with your pencil. I don't think he's actually drawing. I think he's tracing. Oh, the guy with the two pens. You know, I'm on the fence on that, because there are times where it looks completely off the cuff, and then there are different videos where it looks totally planned, which is like very interesting. Let's do a hand. So basically, I have this method for hands, which I'm calling the McDonald's fry cup. Okay? So what you want to do to start your hand is you're basically going to draw a McDonald's fry holder, right? We're all pretty familiar with that shape of that big M, the big red, and that sort of top section. I draw with pencil because I can erase my mistakes. Exactly, yes. And then the next step up is, once you've erased all your mistakes and you're really solid with that pencil, go over the lines that you really, really like with a pen, and you're going to end up seeing some incredible progress. But so with this picture, or with this this shape, this McDonald's fry cup, right? If you're looking at your hand, if you have it, just like place it straight, small, medium, large, and supersize, of course. Depending on your character, you can size up the fry can if you want. But if you're looking at your hand, right, you can separate it into two parts. You can look at it as palm, which is basically like one big box, and then fingers, which are basically the fries, right? Are we all following this? So, starting with palm, if we simplify it down as much as possible, and I'm just going to draw my hand as if it's lying flat right here. If we draw it super, super simple, we have basically just a square. Okay? I'll start absolutely from scratch so it's not so confusing. We're taking this and we're turning it into just a square, right? And that's our palm. And because hands are 3D, hands aren't just like 2D usually, you can even throw in just a little bit of 3D on this palm, or on this box. So now we have like just a very slim box that's sitting on the table. Now, from here, basically, looking at our hand, still with that reference in mind, this all is one section. It's all, oh sweet, music, thank you so much. That's so badass. Since we're separating out the palm and the fingers into two different sections, let's draw all the fingers in one big section, right? So this is where that McDonald's fry thing comes along. We are just going to draw this sideline, a little bit of indication that the fingers change in shape, and then another sideline. So I'll start with that first one. I'll make a point down here, and then I'll finish out that other sideline. And now you're sort of starting to understand why I say that it's one big McDonald's fry cup, because it does mimic that shape exactly. Thank you so much for this. I struggle with hands. Oh, of course. So do I. So now that we have this like top layer, remember how we added dimension to this box, this palm? We're going to do the same thing for this finger section. So we can just take some lines, bring them down, connect them all up, and then all of a sudden we have a little coffin, a little fry box, a little whatever shape you want to call this. But we know that the hand has to fit in here. And if you're looking at your reference image, your hand that's just laying flat on a table, you can see, and just use your fingers for this, like your palm is about this long, right? Your fingers are pretty much the exact same length. Like your longest finger is as long as your palm, right? So that means that this section and this section are going to be about the same length. So we can just refine whatever middle line we have, and that's going to break apart our palm from our fingers. Now, from here, to get all of your fingers solid and in here, we're going to take this line and find the middle point. So that's going to be right there, right? And it also sort of lines up with the very tip of this little drawing. You're having trouble with fractions measuring the face? Oh, here, I'll explain it quick. So top and bottom, that is our full length. That's our full section, right? Halfway in between the top and bottom is going to be the bottom of your eye, right? So that's the half. And then, just looking at this section, just from this line down, that's our new top and bottom. And half of that is going to be the bottom of the nose, right? And because it's a half of a half, it's going to, I just wrote 1/4, but we could change that to 1/2 to make it easier. So we'll just do that quick. So the nose is half of this bottom section, and then from the bottom of the nose to the chin, that's our new top and bottom, and cutting that in half again gets us the mouth line. So I just wrote 1/4 and 1/8 because I was thinking about the top and bottom, but you're really just like slowly cutting things in half 3 times. Are you drawing Epstein? Yeah, baby, of course I am. Also, of course, I forgot to let everyone know that I have the Epstein list. Okay, back to hand drawings. So, remember we took this middle line and we cut it in half, right? And so you got to get some golden ratio calipers. Oh, definitely. We are going to take this half line and draw it all the way out to that end of that section of the McDonald's fry cup, right? And now that we have these two sections, we're going to cut each of these in half again. So from here to here, the halfway point's about there. So we're going to take that line and draw it all the way out. And then from here to here, we're going to find that halfway point and draw that all the way out. And now all of a sudden, we're all sort of seeing that there are 4 fingers here and a palm, which is like our framework. I'll try to find videos about that, thank you. Oh, of course. We have 4 fingers, we have a palm, and now this weird box, this weird shape is starting to look like a hand, which is awesome. It's badass. So, even further, this is our reference. This is sort of the hand shape that we're drawing, just very simple. We have this whole section for the thumb, right? So, same thing. We are just going to keep things as simple as possible. And if you look, this basically looks like a triangle, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a little triangle right here. And then, like we've done with everything else, we are going to just add a little bit of 3D to it. And now, would you look at that? This looks like a mitten. It looks like a hand. It looks like we're getting somewhere, right? And now, we can basically play because we have this whole structure. We have this whole framework. I'm going to take a sip of water. Don't worry. We have this whole structure, and we know that the hand has to fit into all of these parts. We know the fingers have to fit into these sections that we've set up. We know the palm has to sit there. We know the thumb has to sit there. So, going even further from this, if you're looking at your reference, whatever hand shape that you're making, you can tell that this palm section, we originally drew it as a box, it sort of has a curve to it, right? Like it starts low over here and kind of rainbow curves around. Okay? It's just dimension. It's just 3D. So, to mimic that in our drawing, we're going to take this line that we used to split the ring finger and the pinky line, and we're just going to slowly bring it back. And then we're going to take this line that separates the pointer finger and the middle finger, and we're going to slowly bring that back. And now this sets up our palm into 3 parts. And you might be thinking, Nathan, what the hell? How does this help us at all? But we can go and change the angle of these lines just slightly to make them look a little bit more like a trapezoid. And then all of a sudden, we have basically a hand or a shape that looks even more 3D. And then you can reset some of these 3-dimensional spots to look even more like a hand, even more like it's 3D, even more like it's sitting on the page. Right? You see that? Like you can imagine that this side is curving away from us, this side is curving towards us, and all we've been drawing, very slowly, very surely, is just one big, oh, thanks for the follows and thanks for the repost. We've just been drawing a McDonald's fry cup the whole time. Like this shape is the only thing that we're really drawing, but we're just slowly adding more and more detail to it. This is a great explanation. Thank you. So now, our palm looks a little bit more 3D. Our fingers are still just containers for this point, but we have that thumb set up. We have everything that we need to start doing. Oh, Neptune, hi there. What's up? We're doing a hand tutorial right now. We have everything we need to start laying in details. So, if you look at whatever reference image you're using, whatever hand shape that you're doing, right? Oh, thanks for the follow. We know that this pinky, this ring finger, this middle finger, and this pointer finger all have like a closeness to us, right? Like if you look at it this way, this pointer finger, we're going to be able to see the top side and the side of it, right? And then with the middle finger, we're going to be able to see most of the top, but not all of it, and then a little bit of the side. Same thing with the ring, less and less of the side are we able to see. So that pinky, from our perspective, we're only going to see maybe a sliver of the side of it, but most of the top. Okay? So, a good way to draw this and a good way to think about this is draw what's in front of you first, and then draw what's behind it, and then draw what's behind that, and then draw what's behind that. Right? That's so cool. Thanks, Neptune. So, following that logic, let's draw this pointer finger first, because it's the closest thing to us. So when we're drawing this pointer finger, we know that it has this side and this top, so we can just sort of lay in a very rough shape. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect, but we can just sort of fill in. I might have even made this a little bit too thick, but that's okay. It doesn't need to fill this section that we've drawn. This is just sort of our setup, right? So we're just going to turn this section into a little bit of a sausage, is the best way I can describe it. Just curve it out and just get used to that shape. And the reason I was bringing up that side and the top for every single one of these is because with this sausage shape that we just drew, we know that part of this is going to be just the side of the finger, and then part of this is going to be the top of the finger. So again, we can add in just a little indication. You don't always have to draw this part. I'm going to draw it just for the video, just so everyone knows what I'm talking about, and I'm going to shade the side of the finger. So like this is the side, and this is the top. So this is where your fingernail is going to be, right up there. This is where all your creases are going to be. And now, because we have this hand, and because we're using this reference, what's up everybody? Happy to have you. Oh, thanks for the follow. Now we can draw this second finger that's going to be behind this first one, but we're not going to see the bottom of this finger. We're not going to see most of the side of this second finger, right? So, if we're looking at this, it comes out just a little bit past that first finger at like maybe the middle point, right? And then it curves in, and then it's like that same sausage finger, that same sausage shape, right? So now, if I go back and I try and shade the side of this finger, it's only going to be basically like that little sliver. We basically don't see the side of that finger because this one is in front of it. And then we can just repeat the process slowly but surely. This ring finger is a little bit shorter than that middle finger. And then same thing with that pinky finger. It's a little bit shorter. And you see how I'm taking this line and I'm just curving it right into the side of that finger? It's because we're slowly drawing what's in front of us and then drawing what's behind it. And then you're goated, my guy. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate this. Thank you very much, King. We're drawing what's in front of us first and then what's behind it. And the further you go behind, the more stuff that you're drawing behind, the less of that object you're going to see. So, this first finger, we see the full thing, we see the side of it and the top. The second finger, we hardly see the side. And then this third and fourth finger, we're hardly seeing the side at all. Like, I don't even think you would really need to shade anything on these two, because we're just going to be looking at, you know, the tops of those fingers. And so now, oh, thanks for the share. So now we have a very rough cut of all these fingers, and you can just start to outline. And what outlining does is it sets up your drawing for sort of finalization. So we're just going to outline all of those simple shapes that we had set up, and all of a sudden, still keeping in line and still thinking about all of these little things, we can even start drawing the thumb, which again is just going to be sort of a sausage but bent, right? And then that's going to feed into that bottom of the palm that we had drawn earlier. And then we can just flub on this wrist a little bit, right? And of course this finger looks a little bit cartoony, but it's just the structure that we're going for here, and then we can add in all of these details once we have all these containers. Sometimes it's smart and fun to think about drawing like Tupperware, or like a container you put your food in. And what I mean by that is I'm drawing basically a series of little boxes everywhere, and I'm really thinking about perspective with every single little box, right? That's why we got that front box that we see both sides, and then all of these boxes we're only seeing a few of the sides. And with all of this, we're slowly understanding where all of these fingers are supposed to go. And now, basically, we can start laying in some very rough details. Nothing super serious. Don't do any permanent lines yet. We're just sort of playing around. We're just sort of trying to figure out where these creases are, where these fingernails are. We're just going to lay in a little bit of pencil on each of them, right? And then we can draw in a little indication for fingernails on all of these. And then, once we get to this part, basically, we just have to figure out how we want this hand to look, how we want stylized. Interesting, never heard it described that way. Yeah, exactly. Basically, the best way I can describe drawing hands or anything is think of it as a series of little boxes. Think of it as the simplest shape possible. Like when we were looking at my hand first, we saw that this palm is basically just like a little box. It's just a little square if we simplified it down to its absolute core. And then this shape is just like the top of a McDonald's fry cup. So we drew this sort of shape. And then all of a sudden we have a box here and a weird oblong box here. And all we have to do is make it 3D a little bit and then start throwing in details. So that's the McDonald's hand method. And from here, all you really have to do, and this is sort of the part where you'll probably get the most frustrated, is you're just going to be refining. You're going to probably shrink down all of these fingers, like make them skinnier, make them less blocky. And to do that, we already have the setup. We know that everything should lie in all of these places. But just like really look at your reference, really look at your hand as you're drawing this. So I know that this pinky is actually a lot skinnier than we had originally planned for. So I'm going to put my final line a little bit inside that boundary, right? And then this line, we see a little bit of that crease start at the knuckle because it's a little bit longer. You see that crease right there. So we're going to add that in. And then again, this finger is a little bit skinnier than what I had previously set up for it. So we're just going to draw a little inside all those lines and refine that tip. Same thing with the middle finger. We have a little bit of a crease, and then we have a little skinnier, and it pops out for that knuckle, and then it's skinny again, and then we have that final tip. So we can draw that. And then this final finger, that crease is going to switch directions. And then again, these fingers that I'm drawing are a little bit skinnier, so I'm going to make sure that I'm not drawing all of the space, but just enough to show that this finger exists, right? And so all of a sudden, we have a much better, it's not perfect, but it's at least a little bit better of a setup for these fingers. We took that container system we had and we refined it. We drew the lines inside of all those containers. Yeah, makes sense? Great. So now, these fingers look just a little bit better. We can refine this thumb with just a little shaping. We're going to have the nail pretty shown off there, and then it's going to go into this knuckle. And then that's going to come down and cut into that palm, that sort of patty shape. And then we can sort of just jump right into, we'll give a little bit of bone structure here, we jump right into the wrist, right? So, check that out. All of a sudden, we took a weird McDonald's box of fries and we slowly but surely forced our way into a solid hand drawing. And then the rest of this is just adding in all of these little details, drawing your fingernails, drawing the creases. And of course, this is going to change with every character you draw. This is going to look differently. There are no real tricks for this sort of final phase of drawing a hand. It's just a lot of practice. You just have to get a little bit better at knowing where these creases lie. You have to get a little bit better at knowing how to draw a fingernail. You have to get a little bit better at X, Y, and Z, right? But we're just slowly but surely moseying along into this drawing. And then we can add in a little indication for some knuckles, maybe just a line or two. We can extend these creases a little bit if we think they need them. And then basically, that's it. You can take that, remember when we had that side, we made this whole thing a little bit 3D. On those sides, we're going to just shade in a little bit of shadow, right? Just following everything that we sort of set up for ourselves. Just give it a little bit of dimension. Maybe there's a little bit more shadow along these creases. And then maybe there's a little bit of definition and a little bit of shadow on this far side of the hand. And maybe there's a little bit of shadow around this crease where the thumb meets the hand, right? And then all of a sudden, like bam, this hand just like actually looks pretty solid. At least like better than nothing, right? And of course, as you're drawing and as you're learning and as you're figuring all of these things out, you'll slowly find spots to refine. You'll slowly find spots to make things better. And also, a fun tip for everyone is on, let's say like a math test or a science test or like whatever it is. Like you can sort of memorize or you can cheat or you can get to an answer quickly, and like that's fine. As long as it's right, no one cares, right? But with drawing, it's very, very hard to cheat at drawing. You basically just have to spend time with the drawing And the more time you spend on a drawing, like this hand was very quick. It only took me, what, 15 minutes, and I was explaining through the whole time. If I spent an hour on this hand, really focusing on that shape, really focusing on the dimension, really focusing on all of the little details, if I shaded this for an hour, like you would tell the difference between this hand and one that's drawn for an hour. That's why like all those videos that have like the 1 minute drawing, the 5 minute drawing, and then the hour drawing, the hour always looks better because you have so much more space and so much more time to like get the details down. I hope that helps. Whoa, thanks for sending the heart me and the Go Popular. Budgie Bay Jewelry, that's sweet. That's awesome. I was originally going to do a whole tutorial on drawing cartoon faces, but someone asked for a hand, so we kind of had to oblige. And then of course, like with this, thanks for the tutorial, of course, anything. With this, like once you get to a spot where you're really comfortable with this drawing, once you spend, you know, however long you want to on this drawing, you can move to inking. Couldn't cheating with drawing be like copying an outline of a drawing with an iPad on paper? Definitely, absolutely. But there are also times where you see someone draw something that looks so perfect that it's like, it kind of loses that natural feeling. Like this, there's no way in the world that this is a tracing or a sketch or whatever, or like an iPad drawing, right? Because you can see like, you can see the human in it, you can see the error in it. So sometimes if you're really tracing or if you're really just copying stuff, it's like, yeah, it's a possible way to cheat at drawing, but there are going to be plenty of people that realize, I don't think you drew this. I think like a computer drew this. But yeah, that's the way. So I'm just going to, again, just for solid state, we'll throw in like a half there and a half there. So we know that the palm is the same length as that. And then we can draw this little indicator. And this is just to help anyone that's coming in and wanting to understand. And we can say that that's 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4 of this whole length. But yeah, at the IRS, I am evading a lot of taxes right now. If you look at bones in anatomy books, it can really help. Oh, absolutely. That's why if you'll see, like this drawing, I didn't do it, but a lot of people will start face drawings with like a rough drawing of a skull. And the way that that helps is it like really sets you up to understand that all of the flesh and all of the muscle comes from the structure underneath. So like you have this top jaw, you have this bottom jaw, and that swoops into the side of the head, and then you have these big eye cavities, right? Everyone always forgets that the eye cavity is actually huge, and we just see like a little sliver of it. And then you have the nose, and then from here we have like a brow bone, and we can sort of clean up and darken up some of these things so it's a little easier to see. But I'm just like, I'm flying through this, so don't call this the best skull you've ever seen, because we all know it's not. But you can like slowly but surely figure out like, oh, that's how the cheekbones look in like an actual skull. And as you're learning this, as you're really going through all of these little setups, it like really helps to learn and lock in all of these pieces that then the eyes, the nose, the mouth, everything sort of lines in with these skulls. I learned to draw better after I took A and P. What's A and P? Bridgman's Anatomy for Artists is a good one. Ooh, I'll have to look that up. But like if you get really good at drawing skulls, then you can take, you know, all of the learnings. So if I drew from top line to bottom line of this skull, that middle is basically exactly where the eyes are. And then if we cut this section in half again, that's like basically where the bottom of the nose is going to be. And then if we cut this section in half, that's basically where the mouth is. And then that's why, like when you are drawing a face, that's why every tutorial ever has these lines. That's why they cut everything in half, in half, in half. It's because they drew so many skulls and they started to really look at it. And like if I drew the halfway line or the middle line straight down, I know that if I cut it in half again, I get that cross section of the eyes. And then from there, I get like this is the whole side of the head instead of like this is the front of the head. Like you just like slowly but surely, the more you study and the more you get through, the better. But yeah, great point. Thank you very much. What do you guys want to see next? I'm up for whatever. Thanks for your sketches. It's inspiring. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Yeah, I'm just hanging. I'm just trying to teach. I'm also trying to get a YouTube and Twitch stream going as well at the same time. Teacup, dude, let's run it. Guidelines. Oh yeah. Bingo. Okay, teacup. Teacup, same thing as the hand drawing. And this is going to be crazy to everybody. If we want to draw a teacup, we're going to start with a box. So basically, every single drawing, you can start with a box. And then you can figure it out. And what I mean by that is the teacup has to be in this box. The teacup has a top side, which is going to be that sort of mouth ring, that opening to the teacup. It's going to have a side, it's going to have a handle, and guess what? That handle can actually be another box. So we'll draw another container, another box, and that's going to be where the handle is. So with the handle, prediction box is crazy. Thank you very much. With this handle, guess what? We also have a top side. So we're going to draw a little indication for that. We have this far edge, we have a close edge. And that edge is going to have a little bit of that side dimension. So we're going to give it just a little bit of girth. And then that's going to curve back in, right? And then we're barely going to see that bottom side of that handle, but we'll see a little bit of that top. So like there's that handle. And we can even, I want to make this teacup flared out, right? So still remembering that this is all one big box, right? I'm going to draw that circle a little bit larger than that circle, just because I want this to be a little bit stylized. And with that, we know that we're going to be able to see, this front edge, and then it's going to be the bottom of the teacup. And then guess what? Remember this edge of the box? That means that from the front plane, we slowly get to see that side plane. W drawings, thank you very much. We slowly get to see that back side, or that side of that teacup. So instead of this line going straight up, we're just going to continue it along that bottom of the box, right? And then we're going to be able to see a little bit of it through the handle, and then it's going to pop out on top of that flared edge. And all of a sudden, we turned a box, just a random drawing box, into a whole teacup. And then we can draw a hard edge for that little flare out, and then we can just connect this outline into those two edges that we drew earlier. And then, holy smokes, all we have to do is finish this little handle. We can add a little bit of flare on it. Maybe it looks like that. And oh my god, there it is. And now it's just like adding a little bit of detail here and there. And then if you want to draw the T inside of it, let's say it's like a half full cup, we'll come down here and we'll mimic this top line right there, and then just shade it in. And all of a sudden, bang, we have a teacup. Isn't that sick? This is better than AI? Thank you very much. I am actually a robot. I have to break it to all of you. I am an AI robot. I am doing this purely based on your prompts. What's up, young Dookie? Wilma, you like that one? I'm glad. Alright, what else do you guys want to see? I can turn everything into draw. I'm sad. I'm glad. Watching this while procrastinating a drawing exercise. Oh my god. Well, guess what? This is good procrastination, because hopefully some of the words, maybe half of them, will stick in your head. And then that'll just make the drawing ever better. The art teacher I wish I had. Dude, that's the craziest thing, too, is like, art teachers, they know all this stuff. But for some reason, they never taught us this, which is so funny. They were like so focused on getting, I don't know, like weird name cards and stuff we could give to our parents, but they never just said like everything is a box. A tree or a plant? Dude, I have a great tree tutorial. Let's do trees. Okay, so same thing. Guess what I'm going to start with. My art teacher actually teaches me some of this. Oh, awesome. That's incredible. So a tree, we're going to start with a box. This box is going to be the trunk. And obviously, all trees are different. They all look different. They all have different characteristics. Actually, that's a little bit close to the hand. I'm going to move this down. But what we can do with a tree box, my art teacher was dragged off the street and forced into a classroom. So is mine. That's about the exact same situation I had. We're going to start with a box, right? And obviously trees are thicker at the bottom and they narrow at the top, right? But for now, we're just going to start with this box, and we can refine later. This box turns into a holder for a ton of circles. Now, we could call all of these boxes. I'm very aware of that, and I would love to do it. But for this method, I think it's a lot easier if we just start with circles, and then I can explain to you guys why circles are boxes. That is a crazy sentence. I'm sorry I did it to you, but it's real. Circles are boxes in art. Okay, so you have this strange box, and then you have all of these strange circles on top. And what this does for us is it sets us up to just hyper-focus on detail within a tree. So, all of these circles, we can think of them as like nodes. Circles are boxes. They are, IRS, I hate to tell you, but circles are boxes. We can just focus on shading each of these circles instead of shading the entire tree at the same time. Because sometimes when you bite off too much to chew, like shading an entire tree instead of these little balls, you end up with like a very strange tree drawing. So let's say the sun is up here, pointing down, right? That means all of the lightest parts are going to be this section of each of the circle, right? Are we following that? And then subsequently, the darkest parts are going to be the furthest ones away from that light source, okay? So that means on each of these little circles, we can do whatever texture you want for leaves. I'll just do like little scribbles because that's going to be the most fun. The darkest section is going to have the most scribble, right? We're just going to slowly get through a couple of these and then I can make my point. The darkest parts are going to have these scribbles, and then as we get closer to that light source, there's going to be less and less scribbles. So I'm just going to put in a couple randomly on all of these little orbs. Again, this circle has a far side and a close side, so I'm making a dark image on that half, and then that light will thin out a little bit. And then same thing for this one. It has a dark side and a light side. Same for this one. Same for this little extra one. And as you can see, like just doing random scribbles on all of these little circles, I'm slowly getting to at least like a shape of a tree. Are we all following this? So, with that, we have like a setup. We have a structure to follow. We have something to bounce ideas off and think about, right? And it doesn't look like much right now, but as you go, and we can even, this is a great time to change this box, this trunk. We know the trunk has to fit in this box, but we can stylize it a little bit. So we can start a little narrow at the top and then go down. Same thing on this one. Narrow at the top and then flare it out just a little bit. Again, we're just refining that box shape a little bit, adding a little bit of curve. And then with this tree, we already have all of our shading and setup done. So you can go along all of this and outline some of the darkest spots. Maybe we leave a couple of these light spots. Maybe we leave some like spaces open, right? We're not actually drawing the full outline on these parts, but we're just keeping that outline very nice, very neat. And all of a sudden, oh my God, wait a second. There's a tree in here. There is a pretty accurate like drawing of a tree with realistic leaves. And then you can just keep going in and refining a little bit and a little bit everywhere. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I actually drew a tree and it looks normal. It doesn't look crazy strange or crazy weird. This one looks a little bit like broccoli, but the same thing applies for any shape of tree that you want. Like it's at least there. My mind is blown. It's just like, that's all it is. Oh, we've got 83 people in here. That's awesome. Hey, everybody. We are doing a bunch of tutorials. We drew a teacup out of just a box. We showed that the skull has guidelines, and then that skull turns into a man's face. We talked about how to turn a McDonald's fry cup into a hand. There's like details of the trunk, of course. So we're going to have a ton of shadow at the top because all of those leaves block it out. And then that sun is going to touch this side just a little bit so we can keep things dark over here. And then you can add in some lines for bark. And then same thing, the most of the dark or bark lines are going to be on the darkest side, and then there's just going to be like just a couple of little tiny ones. And we can even, let's draw like a little branch coming out of this tree with maybe a little leaf. And like that's it. That's all a tree is it's just a bunch of circles and a big trunk. And then same thing goes for, like if you're drawing an evergreen, you can start with a triangle and a square. And then same thing, if the light source is up here shining down, we're going to see all of the shadow on those details of the sections of the evergreen. And then it's slowly going to get a little bit lighter where you can't see it. And then you're just refining that super simple shape, adding a little bit of flare out everywhere, and then being very delicate with the light side outline. And then same thing with the trunk. We just figure out a little bit of a taper, add a little bit of detail, and all of a sudden you have like a super cute evergreen tree. It's all just, I see. Thank you. I'm glad. It's all just like slow, just take some shapes and start editing them. Just start detailing. It's all very, very fun. What else do you guys want to see? Body tutorial? Ooh, body's a little bit tough. Guess what we're starting with? The body is a square. We can start with this square, and this is going to be our chest, right? And then the body's a little bit more intricate than, say, a tree or a teacup. I'm sorry, it just is. Oh, can you do like a midsection of the body? Everyone I draw is super long. Box, can I join the live? Maybe a little bit later. I'm kind of cooking right here, CS Goon. Um, so with a body, with a tree, with a teacup, all of these things, we can get away with very simple boxes turned into something awesome, right? With a body, it's smart to start with a spine. And the spine, if you're drawing a person, the spine connects up at that top back of the head, right? And then it has this sort of very natural curve to it, where like the body or the chest will sit right here, and then you have like a hip bone. You have like a hip section to draw as well. So you have like head, body here, hip here. And the fun and interesting part about bodies and drawing bodies, I struggle drawing hyper-realistic clouds because I don't draw with color. Can you help? Oh, of course. Jazzy, let him cook. Thank you very much. Um, the fun part about the body and as people stand and like figure drawing and all of these things is the hip bone, like this box that we're going to draw in a second, usually curves up towards towards the head, and this chest box usually curves a little bit down, right? So if we're drawing a body head on, we want to start with that spine just to give us like that midline, just to understand that there is something that these body parts are connected to. I have a drawing, but it feels lopsided. Can you help? Ooh, possible. Yes, yes, yes. Let me get through this body and we might be able to do that. So we have that spine, and we have this box for the chest, and then right underneath it, basically, maybe I don't really have a hack for the spacing between these two. I'd say just practice a ton, and you just sort of start to understand that it's about like a pencil width at this scale. Like it's just a little, you're taking a half step down and then starting that hip bone. And then that hip bone is just going to be a slightly smaller box, right? And now, as we have these two boxes, we're going to slowly refine. So from here, we know that there's going to be shoulders a little bit outside of that box. So we can start with two circles. And of course, these will be like bigger or smaller depending on what character you're drawing. And then same thing for this hip. We're going to have two sections where the legs are going to connect. So we're just going to draw two ovals right there. And already, we're already seeing that this body is taking shape. And what happens with a lot of characters is the chest tapers. The chest starts wide at the shoulders and it goes down a little bit into the waist. Snatched, if you will. Body is T, if you will. So we're just going to change this box, these two corners, to a little bit of a taper, and then we can go into the hips. Same thing over here, a little bit of a taper. Don't go too overboard. We still want things to look realistic. And those hips are going to pop out just a little bit. So now, all of a sudden, we can draw a little bit of shoulder. We can draw a little bit of what is going to end up being the neck eventually is just a little bit higher than that top line of that box we drew immediately. And then that shoulder is going to cascade down a little bit. And like already, we have that middle line, so we know that pecs and chest muscles are going to sit here, and that's just going to be another box. We can do another box over here for that chest muscle. We know that the hips are right here, and the rib cage ends about at that box line, so this is all belly. So that means that the belly button is going to be probably about there, and any sort of ab muscles are going to be about here. And then you have, you know, the obliques, you have the side muscles or whatever. And as you're getting here, you're slowly but surely like figuring out a proportional way to draw all of these body parts. And then from here, it's just like how long do you want the arms, or how muscular do you want this body to be, how whatever, X, Y, and Z. Can you do abs? I never get spacing right. Well, never mind. Yeah, abs are just like, once you get, so shoulders down into about middle of the chest. That's going to be like all of your chest muscles. And what you can do with these is it's just a little bit of shading on the underside. And that's pretty much all you need for a rough sketch of a chest, right? And then from there, basically like a half step down, you get to the section of abs. And it's just 6 muscles, all sort of stacked up. Poochie, what's up? Crow's a no-go? I know. And I think Galaxy left early. But the TikTok's popping off. Basically a half step down is about where these abs start. So you can just draw either a box or an oval, and then what we're going to do is cut it into thirds. You're right, you see that? And then again, we're just going to shade that underside of all those sections, and then you can add a little bit of shading on that midline, and that should give you at least where they sit on the body. For body structure, I just redraw it over and over again until I can do it naturally. Still really hard. Yeah, absolutely. That's body is T. That's like the toughest part. That is the most frustrating part about all of drawing is at the end of the day, it is just hours on page. Like it's just going to be like how many times have you drawn this thing and has it turned into muscle memory yet? And it's like that's frustrating, but at the same time it's like as long as I really dedicate myself, or I really focus on, you know, getting 15 minutes of drawing practice a day, like you will just slowly get better and slowly figure out all of these drawings, and it's going to be awesome. But yeah, that's basically it. And then from here, obviously these are all just like sketches and this is all boxing, and I'm not going to do any like high detail on this body, but like you get that halfway point, you get that box that turns into the belly, you get that box that's all of the hip bones, right? It's kind of like a diaper. And then from that diaper, you can add in the legs, you can add in the arms. Hands always stop about mid-thigh. And then the legs, oh, this is a fun one. So say your head is this big, right? The body is always like 7 heads tall. So you have 3 heads for the chest into the pelvic region, and then you have another like 3 or 4 heads for the legs. So legs and body are usually about the same length. So that's a good way to remember. If you can remember the 7 heads thing, you remember that all of this stuff is about the same length as just the legs of a person. And that proportion and that perspective really makes it easy to get people down and to get characters down. I'll move this back over here. What's up? Nothing much, Poochie. Just kind of like cruising, doing a quick hour of drawing. I think I might play some video games later. Might make some food, but today's been awesome. I mean, the TikTok live has been going great. I wish Magnus was here. I wish Crow was here. I wish Galaxy was still being annoying, but that's all right. We've been going for just over an hour now, which is awesome. Twisted arm. Where? Oddly enough, I can't figure out teen proportions, but I heard making the head bigger works. Haven't tried it yet. Yes, actually, that's an incredible point. I can walk you through that. Kids are smaller adults, but they're still proportional. And the way you convey it on paper is kids will have this big honkin' head and then like this little tiny body. Maybe not that tiny, but like their proportions, that box is going to be a little bit smaller in accordance to the head. Like this head is probably going to be like that big, right? Because it has to be the 7 heads tall or whatever. So let's draw like a big head, and then that chest is going to be a little bit smaller than that big head. Their belly region, like the section between the chest box and the pelvic box, is going to be a lot smaller than this one. So we can draw that little diaper drawing right there. And then those legs, same thing. They're going to go straight down. We still have arms that go to the middle of the thigh, but all of a sudden you're looking at this and it's like, I kind of know that's a kid. I know that is a small person. And it's because the head shape is pretty big. The chest is pretty small compared to that. Instead of like this, you can see that the shoulders really stick out from it. Kids' shoulders aren't that big in accordance to their head. And then of course the pelvic box is also going to be a little bit smaller, and everything is going to be shrunk down. And then same thing for teens. You just stretch this up a little bit, so it's somewhere in between this one and this one. So a teen's head, we'll say it's probably about the same size, but their shoulders stick out just a little bit more than the kid, but a little bit less than the adult. And then those little proportions, and also they stretch out just a little bit in the midsection, but then again, everything else is proportional. So it's like this weird song and dance of like, you're basically just doing half steps up. Like every sort of section of life, you slowly add a little bit of shoulder breadth, you add a little bit of length, you add a little bit of space, and then the head shape pretty much stays bigger than the body until you get to an adult. Yeah, this guy's great. I barely ever find people who know proportions. Oh, that's so nice. Glad I'm not the only one struggling. Honestly, I was debating on drawing now that I say all this. I'm finna start today. Y'all be easy. Oh, awesome. I'm glad. But yeah, man. That's like, I'll keep that in mind. Thanks a lot. I'm glad to help. I'm very happy to help. Happy for you, Mang. Thank you, Poochie. How was your day? Anything interesting? Anything going on? If you're still here. Oh, he left. Everyone, he left. Any tips for beginners? Yo, you are too good, man. Well, thank you very much, CS Goon. I'm sorry I couldn't hop on your live. I'm still kind of having fun in my own little corner. Tips for beginners. Basically, what I would say for any beginner is, first off, like go and draw like comic book characters and Pokemon and like very simple characters. He left? That's just not right. That's what I'm saying. Because the fun thing about cartoons and the fun thing about characters and things on TV is they have to be simple because they have to be recognizable. Don't try and draw this if you're a beginner. But like as you're going, just fill pages. Like just go in, like I'm not happy with any of these faces, but I was just kind of like, I had 15 minutes to kill, so I tried to draw a bunch of different ones, right? That's sick, thank you. Would I rate your second most drawing? Definitely. But like, as you're going and as you're filling, I'm trying to find a specific page. There are some, oh, here's a good idea. Like, one day I just had an idea to draw a bunch of eyes, so I drew 10 eyes in a row. Like, as a beginner, the most you can do for yourself is repetition. Like, just find something that you're struggling with, whether it's, even if it's simple shapes. Like, if you struggle to draw a square or a circle, like, fill one page with 40 squares right here, and then do, like, 20 circles, and then do a couple of stars, and then start doing just, like, lines in a row. Like, get comfortable with drawing and get comfortable using your shoulder, your hand, all of these things, and just like fill pages. Just get stuff out the door. Like all of these, I'm not happy with half of my sketchbook. Here's a bunch of figure drawings, but I filled the page. Say you swear, beginners shouldn't draw me. Say you swear. But like all of the stuff, like this drawing in particular, this isn't like much of a beginner thing, but I took a bunch of simple shapes and then I slowly refined them and added more and more detail consistently, and then I got this donkey drawing. Like, it is just sort of a numbers game. Like, here's a perfect example. I wanted to be able to draw a bunch of 3D shapes all at different perspectives and all at different eyesights. You're still here, Poochie? Oh, it told me you left. Nothing much, I think you're getting sick. Damn. Sick with what? Is it like something bad or just a cold? But like I just filled this page with squares, and I even drew like a little, like the first rendition of box method, which I just drew this guy as a bunch of boxes. And it slowly gets you going. And it slowly, the more you do it, the more you play with all of these like fill pages and simple shapes, like this same thing. This was just one big rainbow arc, and then a box for a human, like a back, and then I took those shapes and I slowly added more and more detail into it, and then all of a sudden I turned like the simplest drawing ever of a bunch of boxes into like a sweet drawing. So that's my best tip for a beginner is just like fill a page. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to be anything, but like just sort of playing with cartoons, playing with drawing your favorite characters, playing with drawing a bunch of boxes, playing with a bunch of circles. Shout out Crow. Like just practicing. 'Cause like I'm doing all this tutorial stuff and I still hate half of the stuff that I draw. Like we're all beginners. We're all going to be beginner drawings forever. Oh, there's my Twitch and YouTube. And so yeah, I'd say just cruise. What's my favorite thing to draw? I'd say recently it's been faces because I've always struggled with drawing faces. Like no matter what. Lovesick. Poochie, no. Still? Oh, I'm so sorry. Is the MJ. Lovesick is such a cold line. No, I'm not actually really sick. I'm just heartbroken. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sending you good energy. I think you'll get through it. Especially like we're 9 months out. We're climbing. We're getting up there. We're getting out of it. I'm glad to have you around. Distract you for a little bit. But yeah, like I struggle with faces so much, and it took me so long to get to. Oh, here's a bunch more hand drawings that we did. The same tutorial we did tonight. The same exact method, all that McDonald's box stuff. But yeah, I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. Oh, here's a bunch more faces. But yeah. I just drew 20 noses one day. And like now I can draw noses a lot better than I did before this day. Like that is, I hate to tell it to you guys. I hate to be a broken record, but if you want to get better at drawing, you got to start drawing. You got to just do it. Here's a fun page. Cartoons, redrawing cartoons and redrawing stuff that's already out there is like so nice and simple because all of the lines are going to be really smooth. All of the shapes are going to be very simple. Everything's going to be like, all the reference images are very easy to find. But yeah, that's all that. And with that, we did a ton today. We did such a huge tutorial day. We did heads, teacups, bodies, trees, and hands. Makes my day seeing you always, man. You wouldn't even know. Oh, I'm so glad. That's so nice, Poochie. Makes my day that you come in here and hang out. You spend your time with me. That's cool. I hesitate to redraw because it's been pressured into thinking it doesn't help much. Well, fun fact. Fun idea for you. It only doesn't help if that's the only way that you're ever going to draw again. If you're redrawing from a different drawing, what body part are we missing? I guess I didn't actually do legs. But redrawing, like say, let's look at this drawing, because I just redrew this from reference, right? I just looked at a picture of a Pokemon and I drew it. But with this, I learned different pressures of my pencil. I learned how to get like certain fluffs for feathers. I learned how to draw talons on these feet. Like there's slowly, whenever you're redrawing, think of it not as getting to that finished product. Think of it as, oh, this is how that artist drew this thing. The next time I draw this thing on something else, I'll have like this backup info, and I'll be able to get through this drawing a lot easier because I just learned from this guy that this is how he does talons. This is how he does wings. Like this big swoop and these the like density and all of the depth in the way that he drew this bird. I now have that like information to then go off and draw it myself. Another thing, if you're drawing from reference, finish that reference drawing and then see if you can draw the same thing over again. Like, I drew Timothée Chalamet from reference, but like now I got a better idea on how to draw realistic looking eyes. And like, I drew him like very hyper realistically, and I learned like the ridges of the nose cast different shadows. Um, all drawing and technical helps, no matter what it is. Practice is practice. Absolutely, perfectly said, Hat. I know it's hate, but I like I like that your name is Hat3 instead of hate. Um, Toes? Ooh, beefy combo. Talking about the toes. Um, guess what? Like I said earlier, I don't know if anyone's like still here, if anyone's been like cooking with me the whole time. This McDonald's fry box works the same way with toes, except a foot is like 3/4 like regular body, and then the last fourth are toes. And the same thing goes like the depending on the perspective of the foot, you're going to see the big toe like in full force right here, and then everything behind it is going to be like very, very simple. So like we can draw, let's say that big toe looks kind of like this. It has a little bit of value. There's like the toenail is sticking out like that or whatever. Then the rest of the foot, I'm only going to be able to see little indications, and they're slowly going to get smaller and smaller. And then that foot is going to turn into all of the details from there. But like toes are very similar to fingers. You draw the one that's closest to you, and then you subsequently draw the one that's further away, further away, further away. And then all of a sudden your foot looks like it's proportional and in the perfect perspective. I gotta change my username eventually. I like it. It's good. No, it's meant to be Hat3. Oh, sick. Then you've got it. You're chillin', goon. I'm glad. I imagine toes is one segment of a finger. That's actually like that is a perfect representation. You're gonna go to bed, but I'm really glad I found you tonight. Thanks a lot. Oh, of course. That means so much to me. Thanks for hanging out. I'm actually probably gonna go to bed too. We've been drawing for just over an hour and 20 minutes. That's sick. I'm gonna put 1.2 hours up top. And we'll even put 12/2, the date today. Bingo. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Do you stream this kind of stuff daily? I try to. I definitely try and get on daily. Every once in a while, I'll skip like a day or two, but I'm usually on here. But yeah, I'm on YouTube and Twitch if you guys want to be over there, but TikTok's fun too. If you haven't already, give me a follow. That'd be nice, and then we can keep chatting. We can keep drawing. Well, sweet. Thank you so much, everyone. This is awesome. I'm glad that you all joined. I'm glad that you all liked the live. All right. Goodbye. Dude, Poochie. You still here? That one was great. I was top dog. I was top dog on TikTok with my similar following. That is a huge win for me. All right. I think you're out. I think you left, but if you didn't, oh, do I have 2 people in here? What the hell? Well, if you are in here, or if I'm just glitching out, I'm out of here. We've been drawn for an hour 20. That's all I got. That's all I need. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.